sweet Nelly Frittata. I'm back. Hi, and welcome to my channel. My name is Rosica, and this is the Midnight Reader. I am a new parent, so please forgive any dark circles or crazy editing. I made a tiny overlord who now controls my life. So I have been reading actually on my maternity leave, which has been kind of a shock to me. I expected myself to not be able to do any reading, but there are some late nights where I'm able to pop in audiobooks, or I take her on a stroller ride or something like that. And I've actually been reading. Also, reading audiobooks is dual purpose, because then I can multitask, and B, I can engage the noise canceling function on my headphones. Work smarter, not harder. However, I was exploring my apartment complex on one of my breaks from the house that my husband sent me on, and I remembered that we have a little library at my apartment complex. And I've looked through it before, and I haven't actually found very many books that were interesting, and so I haven't really taken any. But I decided, you know what? What if we were the magic? What if we were the change we wanted to see in the world, right? So I decided that I was going to start putting nice books, popular, zesty, hardcover, book of the month books. Books that people are like, ooh. So I decided to start putting in a handful, every week or so, and see what happened. And turns out, all of a sudden, really cool books started popping up in the little library because someone else was like, ooh, the book exchange is on. So I picked out 3 books, and I'm going to make a reading vlog about reading these books, because this will hold me accountable for reading physical copies of books, because I find that more difficult. So here we go. First up, Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmus. Things I know about this book. 1, it's very popular. 154 people are waiting for it at my local library. The wait is over 4 months long. You see this on everybody's shelves on the booktube, because, that's how you know that you're cool, literary, fancy booktube girl. Other things I know about it, I know that the author has publicly stated that she hates this cover, which is kind of great, which leads into number 3, that it has a marketing problem. You would look at this book and assume that it is made for women, and it might feature some kind of romantic comedy. So apparently it's not really those things. I've heard from several other reviewers, including Camila at Hasty Books, that this is actually kind of a dark read. It has some dark themes. From what I know about the synopsis, the main character is a scientist, I think in the 1960s. So, sexism. I think at some point she starts a cooking show, which is supposed to be kind of chemistry focused. So she's teaching science, upsetting the status quo, I guess. But anyways, I thought this would be an interesting read, and I saw it, and it's in my hands. So this is book 1. The next 2 are romances. I have Kiss Her Once for Me by Alison Cochrun and Part of Your World by Jimenez. I've seen both of these books on the BookTube reviews. Kiss Her Once for Me is a sapphic love story, and it's a Christmas-themed romance. I know that there is sort of a fake fiance part of this. But anyway, this one sounds great. And then I have Part of Your World by Jimenez, which is, as far as I could tell, kind of a fish out of water romance. Alexis Montgomery is a hotshot city surgeon, and she falls in love with Daniel Grant, quote, a ridiculously hot carpenter who's 10 years younger than her and as casual as they come. Also features gourmet grilled cheese sandwiches and cuddling with baby goats. Big town girl, small town boy, goat on the cover. Sold! I think we're going to start with Kiss Her Once for Me. I'd like to see if there's a Christmas romance that's actually done well, because I haven't found one yet. So we're going to try and see if we can cultivate a little bit of holiday cheer in spring. And we'll go from there. It's now later. Not just in the time of day, but also it's several days later. Baby girl has gone to sleep. I have her on my little monitor, snoozing. The expression sleeping like a baby, by the way, makes no sense, because babies sleep while doing karate in bed. And then they sleep pretty poorly, and for not very long. Had an eye exam today. I'm gonna get new glasses. Does anyone else think it's kind of annoying that they make you pick out your eyeglasses while your eyes are fully dilated. So that means you have to pick out things that look nice on your face when you can't see your face. It took me a really long time because I kept putting them down, and I realized that if I put them down, I couldn't find them again. And this is why I bought glasses online for like the last 6 years. Oh, do you like my nails? I've got these little green springy nails on. I just did these one night when I was kind of bored. This perfectly matches the masking tape that I use to label everything in my house. And that's probably why I like this color. Reading updates. Currently on page 197 out of like 350. So I'm over halfway through at this point. Yeah. Math. I'm really loving this so far. I'm shocked. I was expecting this to kind of be like a good trashy romance, and it's actually just good romance. Also, it's just really, really Portland, Oregon. And I lived in Portland for 2 years to go to nursing school there. It's so Portland, it hurts, okay? Their little meet cute is in Powell's bookstore, which is an absolutely huge indie bookstore. It's an institution. I think it's one of the first places I ever went when I moved to Portland. So they meet at Powell's, very bookish, very cute. They go to like Voodoo Donuts and talk about how you have to go even though it's a little overrated. True. One point, like there's a scene where they're warming up from the snow in a Burgerville bathroom, and they leave without getting fish and chips, which is in fact a crime. Arrest them both. All you need to make this like true Portland is to throw in a drink at McMenamins and catch a Blazers game. But I have a little over a third to go. So who knows? If you ever are in Oregon and you're going to McMenamins, you should try the Cajun Tots and one of the beer milkshakes. Sounds gross. It's delicious. Ellie is the main character, and she essentially falls in love the previous Christmas with this woman. Something happens, and the story takes place in 2 parts, which is this year, this Christmas, which is going really terribly, and the last Christmas, meeting the love of her life and then losing the love of her life. And then this Christmas has a little fake dating trope with Andrew, who's kind of like a Portland yuppie. He grew up in Lake Oswego, definitely like a frat bro. And they get really drunk and talk about their problems. And he has an issue where he is supposed to come into an inheritance, but he has to get married to get the inheritance. So they get drunk, hatch a plan, and she decides to be his fake fiance and get fake married so that he can get the money and then maybe give her some of the money too. He doesn't want the family to know that it's fake, obviously. So very much like The Proposal vibes, which is my favorite rom-com of all time. Love Sandra Bullock and Ryan Reynolds. So Ellie goes home with Andrew for Christmas, meets his family. The 2 grandmas are friggin' hysterical. One is high all the time and one is stoned all the time. They're amazing. The family's hilarious. And then his sister comes home for Christmas, and his sister, Jack, is the woman that Ellie fell in love with last Christmas. Such starts a little love trapezoid caught between a fake fiance and some money that could potentially be life-changing, and the woman who got away. I'm loving this. It's extremely Christmassy, which is lovely because the weather right now is like mid-80s. So it's all about like snow and like magic in the snow. Very, very funny, very well paced. So I'm gonna keep reading this, I think, tonight, and hopefully we'll finish soon. Hello, and welcome to my daughter's playpen. I'm tired and we're on the ground. This is what parenting is now. I finished Kids Are Once for Me. I very much enjoyed it. It was a great little gay Portland romance, very Christmassy. Probably the best Christmas rom-com romance I've ever read. 5 Jingle Bells for sure. It has a number of very funny quotes, including, "Yes, it seems like we've had some kind of miscommunication about what happened last year. Miscommunications are for the straights. We are gonna talk this out. So it's very funny, and it doesn't take itself too seriously, which I appreciate. I do have just a ridiculous bone to pick, which is at one point, because Christmas romance, a big snowstorm happens, and then they have to take cover in one of their neighbors' cabins so they don't freeze to death. They're good friends with their neighbors, so they're like, we're gonna go through the cupboards, make ourselves a meal, light a fire, they won't care, right? Well, they're also going through the cupboards, and they find a bottle of scotch. One of the characters goes, well, you know, we should just drink it. I'll send him the money. I'll let him know we drank it. No big deal, right? And she's looking at it and she's like, this is like a 25-year-old Macallan. This is a very nice bottle of scotch. Maybe $300. This is great. Let's celebrate, dance, and have whiskey. Which I am not criticizing dancing and having whiskey. I am criticizing the fact that if you go into your neighbor's house and they have a 25-year-old bottle of scotch, don't drink it. This is a 12-year-old bottle of scotch. This is a very fancy Lagavulin, and I bought it to celebrate the birth of my daughter. This cost about $150. But Rosica, you say, you know, a 25-year-old bottle of whiskey, that's $300. Twice the age, twice the money. Not so bad. Fun facts for you, I'm a little bit of a scotch girly, so you're gonna learn a little bit about scotch. There is not a bottle of scotch with a 25-year age statement on God's green earth that costs $300. A 25-year-old Macallan costs $3,000. Even if you're rich, a $3,000 bottle of whiskey is a special occasion whiskey. That is a whiskey you are going to drink to celebrate a wedding anniversary, the birth of a child, or to drink with your kid when they match the age on the bottle. Don't drink that bottle of whiskey if it's not yours and no one has invited you. I would really like to read the sequel to this book, which I think is going to be a blood feud with their neighbors, the Sings, over a $3,000 bottle of what is probably very special occasion whiskey. If you're in my house and you have some of this scotch without my permission, we're gonna have a blood feud. That's all I'm saying. See, this is why you gotta watch the channel, because you came here for a rom-com review and you learned something about scotch. Moving on. Now that everyone has stopped watching this video, the next book I'm gonna read is gonna be Lessons in Chemistry, because I want to end on a romance. So I'm gonna read the tougher, darker story in the middle. Until then, I'm gonna lay on the floor as long as possible, because that's what we do now. This is motherhood. I was so tired. We're back. It's a new day. Finished Lessons in Chemistry, and I have some thoughts, y'all. Not my favorite book. Today, I thought we should do a little bit of science in honor of the chemist Elizabeth Zott. Also because I'm bored and I miss my adult job. So we're gonna have some fun today. So what I have, 4 different diaper brands. Oh yeah, it's Diaper Science Day. Did I fail to mention? What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna weigh them all, write that down, and then I'm going to soak them for 5 minutes each. And then we're gonna see which diaper is the king of the diapers, which holds the most pee for my buck, is what I want to figure out. While we're doing that, I thought I would talk about Lessons in Chemistry. The story follows Elizabeth Zott. She's a chemist in the 1960s. She does have a child. She is unmarried at the time she has a child, which is a big deal in the 1960s. But the problem for me was not the plot of this book, it was the tone that was an issue for me. Oh God, science. I can't do 2 things at once. Scale on 0. The diapers we are testing today are Kirkland, Huggies, Pampers, and I think the Walmart store brand. I do have one I'm hoping will win because it is my favorite of the 4, and one I'm hoping sucks it up. 27 grams, 26 grams, 21 grams, 22 grams. All right, nothing left to do but open them all up and dunk them in some water buckets that I pilfered from around the house. I am having the 2 budget brands, Kirkland and Walmart, go head to head in the same bucket. And then I'm also gonna have Huggies and Pampers go head to head because one of those is my nemesis and one of them is my favorite. I'm never gonna get sponsored, like ever. Science is happening. The frightening amount of water to electronic equipment as a ratio, gotta say. Anyway, so my problem with Lessons in Chemistry is that 20 pages into a book that sort of starts kind of lighthearted, a very graphic sexual assault happens to the main character. 20 pages And my other problem with it is that it's sort of played, man, that was so sexist that he was allowed to get away with it. Can you believe? Also, no one will order me enough lab equipment, and my boss called me stupid. It just gets buried in this avalanche of like hashtag the 60s so sexist. I don't feel like it was necessary to do that to her character because it pretty much never comes up again. Doesn't drive the story in any way. Also, like a chapter or a chapter and a half later, she meets her love interest for the story. So all of a sudden it goes from this super graphic sexual assault to, but does he even like me? I've been hanging out with him a couple of times and he doesn't seem to have any interest in me. I find him so interesting. And that just really, it clunks. It doesn't work well. I will link down here a really good in-depth book review by Camila at Hasty Books because she really does the book justice, I think. My problem with it is that it felt like I was reading two versions of a book. I felt like I was reading a sort of whimsical storyline where the narration came from the dog, where you have a child who is almost Matilda-like, and then you have, all of a sudden, it feels like sometimes you just got slapped in the face by like a different novel, one that was going for hard literary fiction where the villains are so villainous, it's almost cartoonish. They have only one piece of them, which is get in the way of the main character, be as selfish as possible, be as evil as possible, but also very like disturbing and graphic. I personally would have preferred to read the book entirely from the perspective of the dog, whose name is 630, because I found him to be the most funny and interesting character. Also, I get why the author doesn't like the cover. It's pinkified, which is everything that Elizabeth Zott would hate, because that's her whole thing. Is she hates this like crazy feminization of women instead of taking them seriously for their brains. Well, I don't know how much time that was. Let's call that about 5 minutes. Do some science. Wow, these have expanded exponentially. I don't even have to be very good at math to say there is a clear winner, y'all. But I'm still gonna do math, so please hold. All right, in last place, my least favorite brand of diapers is Pampers, with only scoring a measly net gain of 560 grams. In third place, looking decent, Kirkland. Thank you, Costco, with 695 net grams. In second place, Walmart. Surprise showing. And I will also say they didn't really leak at all when I lifted them up. There was significant leakage from the Pampers. Walmart scored a net gain of 756 grams. But the winner, the champion of my household, again, not a sponsor, Huggies, holding 812 grams, which I could have told you because that's the only one where I haven't had to change the mattress. Science! Huggies rules them all, at least in my household, in this single experiment that is not really that scientific. Anyway, lessons in chemistry. Some of the best parts in the book were ruminations on pregnancy and new parenting, which of course hit me a little bit harder because that is the land I currently am from. For example, it's just we tend to treat pregnancy as the most common condition in the world, as ordinary as stubbing a toe, when the truth is, it's like getting hit by a truck, although obviously a truck causes less damage. Dr. Mason had warned her that infants were hard work, but this wasn't work, it was indenture. The tiny tyrant was no less demanding than Nero, no less insane than King Ludwig. I actually genuinely loved those little quotes. However, again, I couldn't get over the issues in tone. It felt like you would get whiplash between chapter to chapter. But what really pissed me off, what sealed the deal, I kept with the book, I stuck with it. It was on page 268. Elizabeth Zott, this character who over and over we keep being told she's a chemist, she's ahead of her time. But above all, she's a scientist, she's a chemist. We get hit over the head with this phrase like a 2x4, like multiple times a chapter. She's on her little TV show, which also isn't really part of the plot. Her male boss wants her to essentially pimp a canned soup. The canned soup company wants to sponsor the show and she doesn't want to do it. This awe-inspiring feminist legend, chemist, scientist icon says, "Hello viewers and welcome back. See this?" She held a soup can close to the camera. "It's a real time saver." From his producer's chair, Walter gasped in gratitude. She was using the soup. That's because it's full of chemicals, she said, tossing it in a clunk into a nearby garbage can. Feed enough of it to your loved ones and they'll eventually die off, sending you tons of time and you won't have to feed them anymore. Huge problems with that. Number one, Elizabeth Zott is a single mother in the 1960s who's barely scraping by. Guess what you eat in the 1960s when you're poor? Canned food. She would never say that because she would have had to cook with that. And also, a good cook does great things with cheap food, and I will always believe that. The best dishes come from humble ingredients. Second problem, it's implied that it's canned like mushroom soup, like cream of mushroom, which, by the way, absolutely baller ingredient. You can put that shit in anything, okay? It's gonna make it taste better. It's basically just umami and salt. But what really nail in coffin for me was when Elizabeth Zott, chemist supreme, said, that's because it's full of chemicals. Like, chemicals is a dirty word. And no chemist will ever say that because they understand that everything is chemicals. Chemicals is not a dirty word. If she had said, there are so many preservatives in this, or harmful chemicals, but she didn't. She said this can is full of chemicals, and I lost my respect for this book because Elizabeth Zott wouldn't say that. 3 stars, generously, and I will be moving on with my life. And now we're gonna read a romance. Hope you enjoyed the science experiment. I promise there won't be any diapers in the romance review. Hello, we're back. You might hear a little cooing, oohing noises, and that's because baby girl is entertaining herself over there. It's been a long few days, and I finished Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. My hair is doing its own little straw child wonder thing. Really enjoyed this book. It was the right book to end on. It was as advertised. Big city girl, small town boy, goat from the cover. The love interest, Alexis Montgomery. She's a big city emergency room doctor. She comes from a long line of Montgomerys who have been big shot surgeons at this hospital in Minneapolis. The doors opened 150 years ago. She's very entrenched in this world of status and prestige and wealth. Meanwhile, Daniel Grant has his own family legacy in this little small town where Grant is always sort of holding this tiny town together with their bare hands. I liked that they had their own lives. I liked that they had really great friends, as well as some like not so great examples of friendship, but they had their own problems to solve. Alexis is dealing with a really nasty ex-boyfriend who is like emotionally abusive. She's dealing with parents who see her as a perpetual disappointment. And then Daniel is dealing with money issues. He's trying to keep his family's home and he's working himself to the bone running a bed and breakfast as well as selling carpentry work. And it reminded me a lot of another romance I loved, which was The Flatshare. And I think the reason I loved that one as well is because it's 2 very well-defined characters with their own lives and realistic reasons why they're struggling to be together. In this one, it has to do a lot with class and family expectations, as well as just long distance. There's also a lot of quoting from the movie The Princess Bride, which I adore. A touch of the magical realism to the town in tiny ways. Things like the trees and the weather sort of respond to the love story. In that sense, it reminded me of a YA romance I read by Emily Henry called A Million Junes. And that one has the same sort of like the town and the location is sort of mildly alive. Good night. Overall, I think this one was probably my favorite pick. This was a great book to have at 1 o'clock in the morning with a grumbly newborn. So yeah, those were the 3 books that I read from my little library. I'm going to return this one and Lessons in Chemistry because I bet other people will want to read them. Kiss Her Once from me, I can't return because I've already loaned it out to a friend. 2 great romances sandwiched by depressing literary fiction. I really enjoyed reading these books from my little library. Making this video actually did make it easier to get through them quickly, since I'm mostly an audiobook girly. Let me know if you enjoyed the video, because it is sort of a fun way to get through my physical TBR. Thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, I thank you for being kind. More videos will be coming in the future. You want to sign off? She's not interested in you, and this is fine. Bye.